Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Learn Photography with Duck. As always, I am your host, Duck. Thank you for joining me tonight. Being it's about Adobe Lightroom, those of you who who do use Adobe Lightroom on a regular basis may have already encountered the fact that they did another update and they added a new feature that is called Adobe Denoise or AI Denoise, or whatever it is they call it. It's a denoise. Basically, if you have images that are a little bit noisy from, typically if you're using higher ISO, you get that very grainy effect. This tool is designed to kind of get rid of all that, and we're going to be going over that, and I'm going to teach you a couple little alternatives that you can use and all that good stuff. But as usual, before we get into that, what I want to do is I just want to touch on a couple of the housekeeping things. Of course, I haven't set a date yet, but the leaves on the trees are definitely out there. It's looking very pretty out there. And with the amount of rain that we've had lately, those trees are going to be looking beautiful within the next couple of weeks in full. So it's time for me to get off my ass and actually set a date for the multiplicity photo shoot. Those of you who have joined me in the past, it's a lot of fun. If you're not familiar with it, what we do is we get together as a group, we pair up and work with a partner, and we use each other's cameras to take multiple photos of ourselves in a scenario. And then we bring those images home, open them up in Photoshop, and assemble them into one scene so it looks like you are interacting with yourself. Okay? So it'll be kind of like a two-part thing. Obviously, out in the field, we'll have the shooting aspect of it. And that following Monday, I'll make sure that, I schedule a session of how to put it all together. I'll show you my complete workflow. It's not as difficult as most people think. Excuse me. As always, I start off in Lightroom to normalize all my images. Then I take all of those into a stack into Photoshop in order to do the final composite. All right. Excuse me. I knew there was a reason why I needed to get this so early. All right. I know I don't need to tell you guys about this one, but if you have friends, colleagues that are in your camera clubs or photo groups that do not use Lightroom, and maybe they got, some questions and they're toying with the idea of possibly getting into Adobe Lightroom, I'm going to be giving a presentation through the Connecticut PPA on, when is it? May 30th. It's 2 hours, 7 to 9. And I'm going to walk through all the things that you can do with Lightroom. You guys are already familiar with it. There's going to be absolutely no benefit for you guys to watch this. But like I said, if you have friends or colleagues that are toying with the idea of with Lightroom, and they're on the cusp, and they want a good explanation and a chance to possibly ask questions afterwards, you might want to point them in this direction. Actually, let me go ahead and in the chat, where's the chat? Let me drop the URL. All right. And basically it's on the CTPPA site. You just go to ctppa.com, events, and you'll see my event information there. Okay. It's $25 for non-members. But if you are a member of CTPPA, it's free. But it's 25 for non-members. And like I said, if you know somebody who's on the fence, this may be a good venue for them to a good session for them to attend. All right. Okay. And of course, I'll plug the 7th annual convention going on in June 23rd, 24th, and 25th up in Windsor. I'll be doing a presentation on DIY studio equipment, along with a couple of colleagues of mine. There are a lot of very talented photographers that are going to be doing a presentation during the weekend. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit about what PPA is, and maybe learning a little something, it's going to be a good weekend. Okay. Oh, what happened here? Let's see. All right, let me oh, you know what? I don't have my third display. So let's see if I can do this without totally screwing things up. Share. Okay. Maybe not. Advanced. Okay, give me 1 second. Why can I not share? Share. Oh, I might have to do this the old-fashioned way. I think we're gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. Can we? Screen one, maybe. This is gonna get a little weird. Okay. All right, everybody see that? Okay. Oh no, this is not gonna work.
Yeah. We don't see anything new that we didn't see 2 minutes ago.
Okay. All right. Screen share. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's not going to work. Damn it. Okay. Well, I will have to do a screen share the old-fashioned way, maybe. You know what? For now, just expand your view to. Oh no, I didn't think that third screen was going to screw me up that badly. What was that we were saying a little earlier, Alan? Something always goes through.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Okay, all right. Let's see. What can I do? Share. Why doesn't it let me share a portion of my of my screen? That's really bizarre. I thought. All right, here we go. Let's try this again. Share. Studio. Share. Yes, no, maybe.
That's different.
What are you seeing?
That's different.
Oh, that.
And you, wow.
Okay, that's not what I want. That's not why.
No, I don't think so.
That's bizarre. Why is it doing that? Why is it doing two? That's not what I asked. Stop. Share. it's not allowing me to do a portion of the screen. I think they made changes to this. All right. Portion of the screen. Yes, maybe. Share.
We got you and a bird.
Okay, let's see. All right, you see. Yeah, see, that's really bizarre. Okay. Am I full screen now? Maybe?
You're on the screen, yeah.
Okay.
Just you though.
Just me? Okay.
Yep.
And you see all
And then you, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Cross our fingers. Let's hope that works. All right, because
Thanks for mom helped us get to a decision.
all right. Okay, Fred, you might want to mute your. All right, let's give this a shot. All right, let me reformat this so I can at least kind of sort of see you guys. All right, good. All right. What I have here is one photo that I pulled from a series that I did of my buddy's band. The guy in the background, bald guy, that's my buddy Todd. Very awesome guitar and bass player. Plays in a heavy metal band. Not my kind of music, but you know what? He said, hey, you know, this is probably our last show. You know, we want you to photograph it. So I said, no problem, buddy. I'll be there. The venue, as you can probably guess, was really ridiculously dark. They had some lights, a lot of colored lights, as you can see, lots of reds, lots of blues, very little ambient light. So because I could not shoot with flash, you know, no musician wants flash popping in their face, you know, while they're performing. Everything was shot without flash. That meant having to push my ISO as far as it'll go. And if you notice in the info all the way at the top, I pushed it all the way up to 6400, okay, which is the max on my little camera that I had. So that means the image has a lot of noise. All right, so what is noise? Hopefully that's coming across, okay? Yeah. All right, so noise is that very speckled look to what should be an otherwise flat, untextured surface, okay? So what we're seeing here is just, you know, a part of Todd's shoulder that's catching some highlights from the stage lights. And you can see that in the dark areas, there's a lot of grain that is caused by the high ISO. Noise is more noticeable in dark parts of the image than they are in lighter parts. Not so much when you're using very high ISOs, you know, it becomes very evident in pretty much any areas that should be somewhat even in color, all right? Lower ISOs, when you start getting into like the 800 ISO, that's when it's typically just noticeable in some of the darker areas. But when we start getting into the high ISOs, you're going to notice it just about anywhere. Now, In the past, it used to be a lot worse. Cameras have definitely gotten a lot better in being able to control noise. But in the past, it was really atrocious, to the point where there were two camps. One camp said, "Oh, I'm not even going to bother photographing if I have to push my ISO that high, because it makes the images look like crap." All right. The other camp says, "Well, you know what? I'd rather have a grainy, noisy image than to lose the opportunity of photographing that event." I'm in the camp of, well, I'd rather have some kind of record of it, even if it's noisy. Okay. And I'm kind of glad, because the ability to reduce noise nowadays has greatly improved. And one of the tools that I'll be talking about is the latest iteration of Lightroom that has the Adobe AI Denoise. And I've had a chance to really play around with it, and it is amazing what it can do. Unfortunately, I cannot compare it against something like Topaz and other third parties, simply because I don't use those other third party programs. So I cannot compare them. But from what I have heard from others who do a comparison, it is equal to or almost as good as some of those, other top level denoise programs. Obviously, some of those have had a longer time to really develop their product and have fine-tuned it. Adobe, unfortunately, is a little late to the game. So even though they're late to the game, what they've done is pretty impressive. Okay. There are downsides to using the tool. And one of them that I really dislike, but I kind of sort of understand why, is the fact that when you use that tool, it creates a duplicate. So you retain your original one with all the noise and all the information, and then you get a second one that is denoised. So what does that mean? Well, it means more storage space, because now you have the original RAW, and then when Adobe Denoise acts on a file, it creates a duplicate and generates its own DNG file. So DNG is Adobe's open source digital negative, which is its own RAW format. So in essence, you end up with two raw images, the original and the one with the denoise. That means, yeah.
When they have two photos, which one shows is the one that's been worked on through the denoise? Is it marked somewhere?
It is. It will mark it in the file name, and I'll actually show you, because I'm going to run the denoise on this thing.
Okay.
Okay. And I will show you a workaround. Okay. But before I go into showing this, I just want to kind of give a little talk about when do you need to use something like the Adobe Denoise. Okay. Obviously, it's going to be very subjective. It's going to be depending on what you feel your images deserve. All right. But now I have to kind of weigh, do I want to gain that extra file that's going to take up extra room for whatever benefit that denoise does to my image? And most of the time, as a working artist, as a working photographer, the majority of the images that I create don't benefit from having the denoise put through it. Okay. A lot of the events that I photograph for businesses, they could care less if it's overly grainy. They just want to make sure that they capture it. And I find that even when I'm shooting at extreme levels of ISO, I have certain ways of kind of reducing that noise where the general public really doesn't even realize that what they're looking at was once a very grainy image. Okay. Secondly, I'm not giving them full resolution images that are going to be sent to a printer. They're getting lower resolution images that are going to be shared on Facebook, on Instagram, on their website, in a blog. So any noise in those, it gets minimized when the image file gets smaller. So those are benefits that work in my favor when delivering something to a client that was originally taken with a high ISO. So there's no need. Nobody's calling me out on it. Nobody's saying, oh my God, you're giving me grainy photos. I've never had that happen to me. All right. Where I see a benefit is for photographers who do art photography, and you're looking to really create the best image file that you can in order to be able to print a pristine, beautiful print. Because typically art photographers are going to be printing large. They're not printing 8x10s. All right. They're not printing 4x6s. Most art photographers are printing large. All right. Poster size. So if you have a very grainy image and you're printing a poster, that's when it's going to become noticeable. And that's when you want to put a little more effort into your files in order to make them look great. All right. So for those of you who do art photography, that's the landscape, the wildlife, anything that you're going to sell to the public to be able to be printed, this is going to be a little bit more important for you. Okay. That's not to say that delivering, really cruddy, noisy, grainy pictures, you need to settle for that when you're delivering something to a client. There are ways of going about doing it without having to generate a second file that's going to take up a lot of room in your hard drive. Okay. I'm sure Alan Kay can probably talk to you a little bit about some of these third-party programs. If they generate a new file, meaning that I know most of the time you're going from a RAW to a TIFF or a RAW to a PSD. All right, but that's not duplicating the RAW file. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? If that's what Adobe Denoise did, I'd be okay with that. But they're generating a whole new RAW file, and then from that, you have to go ahead and generate a TIFF file or a PSD file in order to further develop it. And that's just way too many files, for my liking. So that's the downside, okay? If you want to get around it, use something like Topaz, all right, or any of the other denoise programs out there that don't duplicate things, okay? Or if like I said, I'm going to show you a different method that doesn't generate a new file, that will work not as good, but almost as good or passable for 95% of your images. Okay. All right. So let's do the denoise first. Okay, so we have here, you can see this image is quite noisy. Actually, I'm working on a copy. So hopefully the denoise will work on the copy here. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. If not, we'll see. Okay. And oh, now I can't remember. Okay. No, yeah, it does. Okay. All right. So to get to this, we go to the detail panel. All right. The detail panel, before the upgrade, this is where you can do, a decent amount of kind of cleaning up. Let me see if I can, hopefully you guys, I'm at like 300% magnification here, so hopefully you can see that grain. Okay, and that manual denoise is still available. All right, it's still available. All right, there's a little arrow that will collapse it down. Okay, right here. And you'll see that it's got the denoise button. Okay, denoise with Lightroom only works on the original raw file. If you shoot JPEGs, that denoise button will not work. It will not become active. It'll be grayed out. Okay, but I'll show you an alternative. But you should be shooting in RAW. In order to get the most from your file, you should be shooting in RAW, okay? All right, so let me just do the manual denoise first, okay? And the way it worked is you would just move that luminance slider until you see the texture starting to smooth out. Okay. And the thing is, there's a point where if you do it too much, the texture or the surface starts looking a little plasticky. All right. And I don't know if, let me zoom out. And you can kind of sort of happening here. All right. So if I take this all the way, it does not look like a photograph anymore. It looks like some kind of, can everybody see how plasticky and fake looking that is? Oh, what happened? There we go. There we go. There we go. All right. Because what happens is with that, with the manual denoise, as we boost, and I got the luminance boosted all the way up to 100. All right, so I maxed out. All right, and I maxed it out on purpose to show you what the tool is actually doing. What it does is it compares pixel to neighbor. All right, and says, okay, well, these are all in the same color family. It looks like they should be blended together. And it looks at surrounding neighbors and it says, well, this one is a little bit too dark compared to this one, so I'm going to lighten this one. All right, as it samples everything, and it kind of smooths out all the high spots and low spots in the pixel density. Okay, along with that, as you can notice, it destroys texture. If you look at the texture of the hair, all right, of the beard and on his on the back of his head, totally destroys the texture. Texture is gone. Because what it's doing is it's blending neighbor to neighbor, and it doesn't realize that where there is texture, it can't do that neighbor to neighbor comparison because what happens is you may have a strand of light color hair next to a strand of dark color hair next to a strand of medium color hair. And that's what creates the texture of the hair. And it says, well, now I got to smooth all this out. So it smooths it out into big clumps of colors. All right. So it starts looking more like an illustration or a painting than it does a photograph. So it looks like, it really does look like one of those AI text to image generated image, because you can tell it's a person, but there's no texture. All right. You can tell it's a beard, but there's no texture. So that's the unfortunate downfall to this. So what can we do? Well, one, we don't need to crank it up all the way up to 40. All right. So without any kind of noise control, it's pretty grainy and noisy. So what we'll do is we'll just bring the luminance, the noise reduction, to a point where we feel it's okay. It's adequate enough where, it smooths out the majority of the noise, but really doesn't kill any of the texture. Okay. Now we do have a detail slider, but the detail slider kind of works against us, because if we want to add detail, what it's doing is it's literally boosting that contrast, and we are regaining some noise. So okay, well, let's add some contrast. Well, unfortunately, that just kind of makes it a little bit muddy, and now we have soft edges to contend with. Okay. There's also two types of noises. There is luminance noise and there's aberration noise. And aberration noise is caused by the combination of sensor noise and the lens. So there's a lot to contend with and trying to control it manually. All right. So if you're not looking to create a high-end file and you just need something that is passable, this would probably be your first option. Okay. But I've actually found a better solution to this that does not generate a new file. Okay. So, all right. So you say, okay, well, I push the luminance up. So it starts getting that plasticky look, and then I just back it off a little bit. There's a little noise. You can definitely see it kind of along that shadow line and along some of the edges. And then you just got to say, you know what? Good enough for government work. Okay? Good enough for government work. All right. But sometimes the government wants a little bit something more from us. So let me go ahead and reset my noise to the default. Okay. Before I show you the denoise, I'm just going to actually, I don't know if that is going to work on a copy of a copy of a copy. I've never had to do a tutorial on this, so I'm not sure if I'll do it. So I'll save it for the very end. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I found as an alternative to that manual method. So before denoise came out, I said, manual denoise that's inherent with the older version of Lightroom has its limitations. I was looking for something better, and I actually found this obscure, and I mean obscure, workaround. All right. When I show you this, it's going to blow your mind. Okay. Because it seems counterintuitive. we are actually going to add grain to reduce noise. And you're like, what? All right, this is how it works. We're going to go to our local adjustment, and we're going to select a linear gradient. Linear gradient. And you know how linear gradients work. You click and you drag, and it's going to create a mask that fades from 100% to 0% on each end, right? Okay, so we have 100% of the effect from this point down to 50% being our middle, to 0% being at the other end, and then 0 from that point on. Okay, so these two lines, the top line and the bottom line, is our feather, where it goes from 100 to 0. So that's our feather edge. Okay, and normally what we'll do is we'll place it, you know, like for example, if we want to darken down the bottom, we'll place it down at the bottom of our image, and we'll do something like bring the exposure down. This is how we normally use it, correct? We're going to do something a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten this up, and I am going to move this above and off the image. So what that does is it says, I want 100% of this effect applied to the entire image. From that point above the image down is going to be 100%, right? So for example, if I said I wanted to bring the exposure down, well, it's going to bring the exposure down on the entire image, okay? But that's not what we're going to do. From here, we have a section called detail, okay? And if you notice, that kind of matches what we have down lower with our global effects for detail. And that's where we'll find our denoise in our, when we do the global denoise, okay? This detail for our local adjustment, it works a little bit different. It doesn't have a denoise, but we can add noise. Oops. We can add noise, and there is a moire and defringe that we can play around with. All right. So let me turn off the overlay. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. Where do I want to zoom in? We'll zoom in here. Okay. So here it is. This is the original because I haven't done anything. All I did was I created the gradient mask at the very top. I haven't added anything to it. Okay. We're going to go right here where it says detail and make sure we open up that part of the panel. And we're going to take the noise slider and we're going to increase our noise. And I want you to notice what it's doing to our image. All right. By adding noise, we are actually doing a bit of a denoise to the image. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. Moire doesn't really do much. As you can see, it just kind of affects color. All right. So you don't need to touch that. As a matter of fact, if you just reduce it down, you know, it really doesn't add anything. And neither does the defringe. The defringe desaturates it a little bit, but really doesn't do anything to the noise. Okay. Same thing with sharpness. Sharpness works like the normal sharpness. Okay. Where, you know, it just looks for those edges. Okay. And if we remove sharpness, it does what it's supposed to do. It's going to blur out the edges. But if we add it, it's just going to add that contrast just to the edges. If you notice, it's not doing anything in the center part All right, it just applies it to the edges. So that's not going to help us either. Okay, so I usually just do the noise. Okay, and I usually find that pushing it up to 100% really does a good job of cleaning this up. All right, take a look at this. All right, look how even that noise is. All right, now let me back it out. All right, look at the texture of the beard. We retained the texture of the beard. We retained the texture of the hair. All right, but look at the skin. All right, let me turn it off. That's before, that's after. Before, after. Is that amazing? I thought it was amazing. Okay. Bill, as you've discovered, the new Denoise does not work on JPEG images.
Yes.
This should work on JPEG images. I have to admit, I have not tried it on JPEG images. For some reason, that did not occur to me to try, because I normally just, I don't shoot JPEGs, all right?
Well, what it is I don't shoot JPEG. When I opened up Raw today, it's like, oh, let me test a picture, and I just went and I grabbed a file.
Oh, okay.
So I would never be doing JPEG.
All right, but there are the occasion, maybe you drag something in from a cell phone that shoots JPEGs.
That's
You
true.
never know, okay? But understanding the tool the way I do, I'm fairly confident in saying that this will work with a JPEG. All right, understanding the way this works, it should work. Okay, so why am I showing you this? Well, if you don't need or don't want another raw file, taking up storage room, and you don't need that high-end denoise that Lightroom has now added to their tool base, this may be a good alternative for you. All right. Now, what I've done, and what I recommend you guys do, is turn it into a preset. Right here, preset. Noise, denoise mask. Okay? Now, here's a word of warning about making a preset using the new mask system. Okay? By default, if we look here, you'll notice that when I generated that linear gradient, it's labeled mask 1. If I generate another mask, it doesn't matter what kind of mask I generate, it's going to label it mask 2 and mask 3 and mask 4 and so on. Okay? So now, if I build a preset the way it is right here, and I use it, any mask 1 that is already in place is going to be overridden by the preset. Okay? So what I've done, let me go ahead and delete this, delete mask 1. Okay? So I no longer have any masks on this image. Okay? I created a denoise, so I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. You can see that with one click, my image is now noise-free, suitable for sharing on social media. This particular client's not looking for high-end images, so this fits the bill, okay? I actually could have gotten away with just using the denoise in the details tab, but I wanted to give them something a little bit better, right? That's me personally, okay? All right, so now if we go to the mask tab and we open it up, you'll see that I have a mask here called Denoise. All right. I labeled it so that way this does not overwrite anything. All right. Because Lightroom is not going to generate a mask called Denoise. All right. It's going to generate mask 1, mask 2, mask 3. Okay. And I just have to make sure that if I build anything else with a mask, I don't use that name. Plain and simple. But I don't think I need to because that's pretty much the only denoise mask I need to have. All right, makes sense? All right. Okay. So having this is going to save you a lot of time because now, guess what? You shoot like for example, this I shot a night's event. It was 4 bands. Okay, I photographed 4 bands. I went through Lightroom. I made all my selections to the ones that I'm going to deliver, and in one block, I applied denoise to all those images. One whole swipe. I selected them all. I hit the denoise preset, and bam, just like that, I denoised everything. Okay, that's the beauty of this particular method. Okay, all right. I'm going to undo this denoise. All right, delete denoise. Okay, and I'm going to just give you one little warning here. All right, zoom. Let me go. I'm gonna make a new. Let's do a radial gradient. All right, I love my radial gradients. You guys know this, okay? And we're going to give a little bit of an exposure boost, right? Bring down the shadows a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I've applied a mask to our lead singer here. Okay, typical, right? And as you can see, it's labeled mask 1. Okay. Now I say, oh, damn, you know what I forgot? I forgot to add denoise. That's cool. I have the denoise mask right here. So I'm going to click on that. Bam. Right there. Added it without any interference to what's already there. Okay. So, make sense? All right. Okay. Let me go ahead and reset that. And now I'll show you what the denoise function did. All right. So any questions on any of the 2 processes I've showed so far? Any questions on that alternative method that I just showed? Everybody followed that, right? Little sideways thinking, but for some reason it works. Okay. Once I discovered that, let me tell you, I loved that little off the wall just method of denoise. Okay, so we have our image, very noisy. We're going to click on the denoise, and what it's going to do is it's going to generate a new file. Well, actually, it's not going to generate it just yet. All right. But it's going to give you a preview window. All right. And as I drag it around, you can see that it's fairly noisy. Okay. And as soon as I let go, it applies the denoise. And right now, it's kind of set at default of 40. Okay. Denoise 40. Okay. That can be modified. So what we can do is we can kind of drag around the image and see what this denoise is doing. All right. Here's his hand, and you can see that it is drastic how it cleans it up. Look at all that noise on the fingers, and as soon as I let go, look at that, how clean that looks. It's as if you're shooting it at 100 ISO. All right, so let's go to the beard. Okay. All right, let me zoom out. Let me zoom in right there. Look at that. it retains the texture of the beard. Okay, it's a little soft, but you know, to be fair, it's probably my image, you know, being so dark in there. You know, who knows what the hell I was focusing on. And I was using, let's see, what was I using? 2.8. All right, so I was maxed out at 2.8. So my field of focus was very narrow to begin with. All right, so that part was probably already soft to begin with. I'm also shooting at 1/60th of a second. It's a little slow for that environment. So, you know, there's a little bit of handshake involved too. All right, but even with all that, that denoise is phenomenal. Okay, so as you go around and take a look at the, all right, look at that, what it does. All right, you can always adjust down or up on your image. Okay, now remember what we said about the other two previous, or actually the manual denoise? If you go too far, it starts making it look plasticky. You can get the same effect here, but you really have to push it a lot further than you would have with the manual method. Okay, let me zoom out. Let me get his face. He was blurry to begin with, all right? But if I push that all the way, you can see that, again, all the texture is gone. All that texture is gone, all right? If we go to the beard, okay, all right, we still have that texture because it's got broad enough. But any skin texture, you're going to kill the skin texture. Let me see, good. There we go. All right. So you can kind of start broaching into that very kind of plasticky feel, but even maxed out, it's amazing what this tool has done. Okay. I would take it on a subject by subject level. All right, here it is. Look at his nose. That's grainy. All right. I want you to take a look at the highlight on the nose. As soon as I let go and it applies it, it almost looks like you can see his pores. And I bet you anything, if my image was a little sharper, we can probably get recover some of those pores in his nose. All right. So this denoise function is just, it's phenomenal. Okay. All right, I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to max it out like that. Noise, having a little bit of noise is actually helpful because it gives us the illusion of texture on surfaces rather than making them look plastic. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to punch 40 back in as the default. Okay. Below it, you're going to see a couple other things that are grayed out. Raw details, okay? And if you hover over the little info symbol, it just says automatically applied when using super resolution or denoise, okay? And super resolution, that's not accessible right now, but I'm pretty sure eventually that's going to become active. And super resolution will allow you to enlarge your file size while keeping the detail. All right. There are a couple other third-party programs that will increase the resolution of your image, but it looks like they're going to be adding this in the very near future to Lightroom. So it's kind of cool. I'll just mention very briefly. Like for those of you who do wildlife photography, you're at a distance, you're shooting with a long lens, and typically you're not really filling the entire frame with your subject. So what do? You crop in the best you can in order to maximize your subject. Well, this is going to allow you to recover that size that you've cropped out. Okay, so Alan K, this was going to be for you. I have a feeling. All right, and then the other one right down here is the create stack. And all that means is when it generates the new DNG, it's going to group it with the original raw file so that they're together as a group. That's all it does. I'm a big fan of keeping things organized and grouped. And if you notice that it adds enhanced noise reduction or enhanced NR to the file name, so that way you can differentiate between this one and your original. So it'll add that, okay? And you're good to go. But if you notice that it generated a DNG, so it is a raw file, it will, you can now take it further in your processing. So what does that mean? Again, well, there's two camps to this. There's the people that says, you know what, I want to do my denoise before I do any of my edits. All right. So this will allow you to do that because it's going to generate a new raw file that you can process just like you would your original. Okay. So you're going to get that extended range of luminosity with the sliders. It's going to allow you to add, things like vibrance and saturation and everything else that you would with the original raw. All right. But there's the other camp that says, you know what, I want to do as much to the file before I do my denoise. All right. So it's, and in my opinion, it really doesn't matter because the denoise is probably going to carry over all the settings that you created. It's probably just going to go ahead and carry it over anyway. Personal preference. Okay. All right. I think I would probably want to do denoise first because it's so much nicer to look at a clean image than a noisy image as you're working on it. But that's just me. Okay. All right. Any questions about the new denoise function? Okay. And
Doc, and after you make your JPEG, you can have your final JPEG. You can delete everything anyway. You can delete that DNG anyway.
Yeah, you can.
I mean, it's just one of those things
yeah.
where once I make that final file, I've got my watermark on it. I'm done with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just make sure you don't delete your original.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I don't. The regular raw file there, but the DNG copy is gone. So is the diff.
Right.
For that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. If that's part of your workflow, yes, by all means. Absolutely. So, okay. So hopefully this gives you a little better understanding of the new denoise feature. Hopefully I taught you something a little bit different about denoise and some alternatives for those of you who, do have some old JPEGs that you want to clean up. And hopefully I gave you a new way of thinking about when to use denoise. So, all right. All right. Any questions on anything we covered here? Here's your opportunity.
No, adding noise though was mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like, what? Wait a minute.
I would never have thought that would work.
And you can see the clarity of the photo once you added them. You saw the edges.
Yeah.
They were up. So,
Yeah.
point blank, it works.
It works.
Yeah.
I use DxO. I like DxO. I'm used to it. It goes right into my workflow. But I can see where there is advantage to this also, because the DxO also gives me one more photo. You know,
Yeah,
so-
it generates, I believe, a TIFF file, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, most plugins, you know, because what you're doing is you're taking a file out of Lightroom,
Right.
and Lightroom will generate a TIFF file for that third-party program to work on. It does whatever it has to, and then it re-imports that TIFF file into Lightroom. So, but that's no different than, you know, taking an image from Lightroom, going to Photoshop, and then, you know, back into Lightroom. No different than that. You know, the only thing is, like I mentioned, this just add another file to that whole process. So if I were to, you know, take that image, do the denoise, and then I wanted to do something else in Photoshop, then it would be the original RAW, the denoised RAW, and the new PSD file or the new TIFF file. You know, so. But I like your idea. You know, I should have thought of it to mention that. Yeah, you don't need to keep that denoised file once you're done with it, because you can always replicate it. I mean, it's very simple to replicate, you know? So. All right. Anybody else? Questions, comments, answers coming? Alan, I don't know if you want to share anything from your experience using some of your denoise programs.
They all work just the same, pretty much the same, varying degrees of noise removal or that type of thing. It's going to be interesting if Adobe Lightroom comes up with the sharpen AI part of that whole trio, if you will.
Right.
Because my workflow includes the denoise, and then it includes the sharpen.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm not too fond of Lightroom's sharpen.
Right, so hopefully they'll do the same thing that they do with the denoise.
Yeah.
Okay, is what I'm getting at.
But what I find works better for me is in the basics tab, using the presence, you know, and messing around with the texture and clarity, because that has a little bit more of that, you know, adding texture really kind of sharpens the image to a certain extent.
Even dehaze within that section.
Yep.
All three of them, at varying, depending on what it is, works just fine.
Right.
Okay, but my workflow takes me out of Lightroom into third party through third-party plugins and then back again.
Right. Well, let me ask you, in regards to that particular workflow, at what point in your workflow do you go out for that, the sharpening and the denoise? Do you do it at the beginning, middle, end?
You've got those same two camps. You've got the one camp that says, okay, crop it and then do a denoise on the crop, or then you've got the other camp that says, well, the more area denoise has to work with, the better off to be to start with.
Oh, okay. I never quite thought of it that way.
Okay, I mean, if you go out to denoise, do a few color things or something, don't do any cropping in Lightroom, and then go into a denoise, and then the third-party denoise. It has the entire full frame to work, full file to work with. TIFF or not, it has the whole file to work with.
Right.
Okay, and then when you come back, and it's true, you don't know exactly what your cropping is going to be yet.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I still got another 5 minutes or 10 minutes of stuff to do, and who knows where I'm actually going to crop that eagle off the tree. Am I going to leave a lot of the environment around it, or am I going to go in tight?
Yeah.
Or is that osprey coming in for a dive, and I want to get it to dive as opposed to the environmental shot of it a little bit further away?
Right.
I don't know yet.
Yeah. Usually the cropping's what I do last as well. For the most part.
So, and there's some things where I just say, this is what I'm going to get. I can't get any better. This is what I want. I'll crop in, and then I'll do a denoise on just that crop, and that's what I got.
Right.
So it all depends on what the photo is.
Right. Okay, cool. I appreciate the input. All right. You have a couple of tools now in your tool belt. As nice as the Denoise AI is, I want you to keep in mind that that local adjustment denoise with the gradient filter, because there are times where you don't need to generate a second file, and that little preset right above my head here, that little preset can really work wonders. So keep that in your tool belt. Okay. All right. Make it a preset. All right. Gloria, make it a preset. Let's see. Did I forget anything? I think I covered everything. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. So anyway, that's it.
Thanks, Doc. It was a good class.
Awesome.
As always, it's great. You made it simplistic, straight to the point. It worked.
Sweet. Okay. Next week is Photoshop. I know Photoshop is got a couple of new things, so I'll put something together for that, and then we'll see. I have a couple of students this week and next week. I have a couple. I'm doing a mini internship with a couple of high school students. I invited them to join us, but I warned them that the content here might be a little bit above their head. But who knows? Maybe they'll join us next week or the week after. So anyway, I just want to let you know that we may have some new company. As always, share it with your friends and the camera clubs and photo groups that you belong to. Let them know that we are meeting here on Monday and that, there's something to be had here. So I really appreciate you guys. For those of you who are my Patreon supporters, I want to get a Patreon only session this month since we have an extra week. So if you have any suggestions of something that you want me to cover as a topic for our private session, let me know, and I'll put it together, and that'll be our 4th week session, okay? All righty, guys. That's all I got, unless anybody's got any questions on anything. Whether it's what we covered today or, something else that's troubling you with Lightroom. No, we're good?
Thanks. I'll see you next week.
Okay. All right, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Doc.
Take care.
Thanks for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.